Well, to break this all down, I'm joined by Anne McElvoy, Senior Editor at The Economist, and business consultant Kate Hardcastle. Good evening to you both. Kate, if I could start with yourself. Rishi Sunak really targeting this, he said, to small and medium-sized businesses. From businesses who've spoken to you, will these new measures help them?
For some, every single measure that's been put in place, it's bypassed them. And a lot of micro businesses don't have months and months of capital in the bank. It's a case of weeks. They are literally living week by week. And those who have survived have had to, many, implement huge costs to make sure they can adhere to safety measures. They're accepting the fact that they're going to be at a lower rate of custom for a long time. What this has brought home to me is that the government do need to hear from a wider platform of self-employed, smaller businesses, micro businesses, and that actually certain sectors have been left behind because perhaps they don't have that direct route in. When we look at something like the beauty industry, where they're reopening, they're not reopening, and the amount of investment that was needed just to get those businesses back on their feet. We know the restrictions yesterday and the day before, and the news of that has had huge impact on many industries. But the fact is, this can't just be a case of the biggest survive. The smaller businesses need different attention, different needs.
Rishi is hoping, Anne, that this will be a lifeline still to businesses. But saying that, it's definitely going to cost the government a lot less. Before, it was $2,500 was the maximum the government would contribute to the furlough scheme. For the job support scheme, that's been reduced significantly to shy of £700 a month.
But I think the aim of this, and it's obviously a really unwelcome kind of Rubik's Cube that the Chancellor is working with here, and it's absolutely right. You know, some people are going to be at the sharp end of that. It does target small and medium-sized businesses. That's where the main gain would fall. And the aim is to make sure that they are able to keep as many of their staff as possible if they can get them to the point where they can do a third of their hours. Now, absolutely, as our previous guest said, that's a very big if, and it's very tough for those who are right at the edge of being able to make their businesses work or not. But you have to look at it a bit as well from the Treasury's point of view, that you can't go on endlessly having a scheme that perhaps is bailing out businesses which were not going to make it through this crisis, or might have been at the edge anyway. So that's one thing. And the other thing is it's actually quite tough on big businesses. Big businesses have basically been told to kind of get on with it themselves. They've got a much higher bar to cross to get access to public funds. That said, for those who are eligible, it's still reasonably generous along the sort of 77% of income kind of lines. The question is, as always, who's going to be left on the sidelines, because it has to leave some people behind, as far as Rishi Sunak sees it, in order to keep the public finances anywhere near on track.
Kate, you mentioned earlier one of the industries who feel left behind in all of this was the beauty industry, but then there's also entertainment. I did not hear a mention of the retail industry as well.
I think what we have been given in terms of the support package, yes, everyone understands there's a finite amount of money that needs to be supported here, and it's an economy that we're all looking to pay back into. But we have to be realistic that actually that testing in terms of was the business viable or not perhaps wasn't done as much in this first round of support packages that were there. We know that, for instance, industries like the entertainment industry are made up of lots of self-employed people. And if you just shut the switch off because that business can't reopen, it doesn't matter if the business is viable or not, if it was doing well or not, it's just not getting the opportunity to perform. Ditto a lot of retail in traditional formats, the bricks and mortar stores, and certainly industries like the beauty industry. The fact is, many industries, Claudia, that they're consumer driven, and consumer appetite is dipping all the time with the nervousness of the situation we find ourselves in and our own economic worries. So I think it's very much now, if the cash is spent up, what can the government do to actually put support measures in place that might be more about the mental health, the support, the business advice that they could find to give these organisations to get a lifeline?
And next month, we had that confirmation that the furlough scheme will be coming to an end. It's thought around 3 million people are still on that scheme. Will the new job support scheme then be able to take those people off furlough onto that scheme and save those redundancies?
Not all of them, because these are very different criteria. In fact, the aim of them is much more a bit like the German scheme. It's about trying to save a rise in unemployment more than it is. The Chancellor might disagree with the way that I'm putting this, but more than it is about just being a continuation of the furlough scheme and handing out the same money to the same people. Not all of those people are going to qualify under the new scheme. He wants to support jobs, and he wants to support people creating jobs, because he thinks the rise in unemployment is the bigger risk. And of course, there will be measures put in place to stop those who have been in the furlough scheme falling into absolute penury. But that doesn't sound to me like it's going to be very generous. And I think there are going to be 6 very difficult months ahead. If this policy kind of works out, and I'm not saying some people will not suffer more than others, because they will, you will see at least a reasonably resilient labour market. Rishi Sunak's great worry is that we're going to see such a rise in unemployment that he felt he had to shape the solution this way.
One message, one of the many messages, Kate, was that we are going to have to get used to this new normal. Businesses are really going to have to adjust.
Very much so. And there've been considerable investment from many businesses just to get started, who are all experiencing a severe reduction in the capacity they've got. Obviously, there are good news stories too. We've seen the boom of online. We've seen distribution companies being able to enable growth off the back of things like that. But we've got to be realistic in terms of the fact that consumer appetite is going to be severely affected, not just for months, but for years to come. And that we've got to understand that every business, 5.82 million micro small businesses in the UK, do so much for our communities, do so much more than just deliver on the pounds and pence. And I think we've got to be realistic in terms of how many we do need to reach out to, and understand how maybe through collaboration we can keep more of them going.
OK, Kate Hardcastle and Anne McElvoy, really good talking to you both. Thank you.